Welcome back after the coffee break. And we are here for the last roundtable session of this conference on Put Away Your Soul. For the past 2.5 days, we have been listening to many interesting and fascinating narratives on this theme. And now we have reached this session on the theme reflecting on grassroots church formation in nonviolence. I am Lawrence Fernandez, a Jesuit from India, currently at Massachusetts Holy Cross College on International Fellowship Program. I'm a professor of philosophy in India, training Jesuits, also a visiting professor at the University of Madras, and also at Loyola College, Chennai. Glad to have you all here. And we are deeply grateful to Bill and team for organizing this wonderful conference with so much fascinating dimensions on this theme. Deeply grateful to you, Bill. Thank you so very much. So the first speaker of this session is Ana Raffai, a native of Croatia. Ana Raffai is a peace activist, a Catholic theologian, and professor of French and German. In 1991, she graduated with a degree in theology. And in 1992, during the Balkan Wars, she and her husband Otto created an organization called the Regional Address for Nonviolent Action in Croatia. Her PhD work is on nonviolence, she told me just before this session. Since 1996, Anna has worked as a coordinator, program leader and educator, actively committed for promoting nonviolence in education and civic action, focusing primarily on the interreligious peace work that links nonviolent action and interreligious coexistence. She serves on the boards of the Ecumenical Women's Initiative and the European Ecumenical Network, Church and Peace. And she coordinates RAND's Believers for Peace Network, which holds regional interreligious conference titled By Building Peace We Celebrate God. She has published several theoretical and popular peace articles in Croatian, German and French, as well as several peacebuilding training manuals. In 2005, together with 1,000 women around the world, she was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. She and her husband Otto received the 2003 International Fellowship of Reconciliation as well as the 2012 Kruno Sulki Prize for the promotion of peace building and non-violence and human rights. So we have an illustrious speaker with us this evening. Please give a round of applause and we welcome her to the dais.
Hello, and thank you for your invitation here that I have the opportunity to speak about Believers for Peace. So, Believers for Peace is an initiative of Christian and Muslim believers from Southeast Europe, active in peace building since 2006. The group consists of 9 people from Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina and Serbia, who are already peace activists, and most of them have theological education. In public, they are most visible at conferences by Building Peace, We Glorify God, that are held in this region. On these conferences, Believers for Peace gathers believers who are interested in interreligious peace work on subject of non-violence and peace. The peace building of this initiative takes place in the social context marked by the traumas after the war, nationalism and animosity, and populist tendencies in politics and society. In the countries of Southeast Europe, society still suffers from its lack of intimacy after the war and learns democracy in such an atmosphere. Among them, it is not unimportant to mention the influence of anti-gender conservative and evangelical tendency imported from the US are make problems. In this context, such conservatism is is viewed to the public as the only political position that is right for Christians. In the context of Southeast Europe, identities of religions are alive. The majority of the population identifies with their own religion, community, and the identification of religious and ethnic identity is often the case. Major church, Catholic in Croatia, Orthodox in Serbia, and religious communities, especially Islamic in Bosnia and Herzegovina, have strong influence on society and political decisions. Even more so, most of the believers are obedient to them, no matter if they are ordinary citizens or political elites. With this behavior, they can be a closing factor toward others and those who are different, and a part of religious representatives are even publicly promoting nationalistic ideas. This bad immediacy of the national and religious identity supports nationalism. A lack of knowledge of own faith explained in part obedience to religious representatives without critical review of their political influence of religious communities and church on political decisions is generally conservative and sometimes exceed limits of autonomy, respecting the autonomy of politics and church. In this context, the initiative Believers for Peace is a clear critical voice against xenophobia and chauvinism, especially when they are justified by religion. The societies in the region, in Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia, Macedonia, are often called divided societies. Societies are divided within themselves in ideological groups whose members rarely come into contact with their ideological opponents. Individuals as members and their groups or community sincerely hope for peace, but at the same time they carry the seeds of hostility and intolerance. One source of causes is the lack of encounter between members of various ideologically diverse groups. Lack of touch and the surplus of fake news result in multiplication of prejudice and working fears. As believers and peace activists, we started in the initiative Believers for Peace because we don't agree with the situation in a society where religious affiliation was much more used to differentiate between confessions and peoples, and even to rejuvenate hostility among them, than reconciliation and coexistence. Therefore, we organized the first conference 2006. So far, we held 4 of the same. Offering knowledge of peace theologies, nonviolent concepts, and getting acquainted with example of nonviolent action, the Believers for Peace are opposed to manipulation with religious affiliations, feelings, and affections. The initiative today is an example of cooperation between Abrahamic religions in building peace. It promotes active non-violence from the initiative Return the ownership of believers over their faith. In Catholic tradition, the theological foundation is recognized in the priestly, prophetic, and royal ministry of baptism and in the concept of sensus fidelium. The last conference was held in 2017 with the title Reaction, Believers for Peace in the Time of Nationalism and Xenophobia. This is some pictures for our conference. The declaration of this conference was clear and one of few critical voice of believers against xenophobia and chauvinism. The experience of good praxis of the initiative Believers for Peace confirms that there are two important factors when social change is to be initiated that we aim for in interreligious peace building. Those are encounter and the art of nonviolence in mutual communication. The initiative organized conference so that different believers have a chance to meet each other, get to know each other and create their own image, and after this relationship about the other without ideological mediators. But the encounter itself needs the support of nonviolent communication and nonviolent attitude toward the other who is worthy of respect. Acceptance of the other, regardless of age difference, education, religious and national affiliation, as equal to oneself, open space for interaction in which through dialogue, peace theologies are introduced. We cherish dialogue as We cherish dialogue as an experience in which we do not compete, but stimulate humanity and seek it in ourselves and in others. On the conference, examples of good practice in peace building in the region and in the world are introduced to inspire participants for their own nonviolent action and to encourage them to persevere in peaceable coexistence despite the violence which they experience in their surroundings. Fundamental values which initiative follows, as it is written in its strategic plan, are mostly in the domain of peace building: nonviolence, cooperation and respecting the difference, power of faith, mercifulness, justice and love, peace building, social change, forgiveness, conciliation, freedom and consensus. Equally, the initiative is also described by the Believers for Peace Declaration that outline a profile of believer for peace in 7 points as it is understood by this initiative. The declaration is signed by more than 200 people who are rightly called Believers for Peace too. We like the group of initiative. The main title that every conference organized by the initiative has, it is By Building Peace we Glorify God, obviously articulate awareness of its members that faith and peace building are related to each other and that it's necessary for us as believers to take responsibility for peace politics in the society we live in. As believers, we must encourage our religious communities, now more than ever, to recognize the strategic significance of peace building for the testimony of faith. Equally important as a conference are regular meetings of the members of the initiative, 2 to 3 weekends each year, whether it is on a specific project or not. The sense of this meeting is to develop our concept of Believers for Peace, to address and transform non-violently conflicts within the group, to discuss social conflicts or different views of the same social problem, to recognize conceptually and strategically the vision of the believers for peace movements. The organization RAND from Croatia, that is a part of the initiative Believers for Peace, within its own educational program, offers an interreligious educational encounter at the aids to the Believers for Peace conference. Every year, usually in Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina, RAND gets the participants from above-mentioned religious communities. Our program addresses believers in the Southeast Europe region, precisely because the non-violence in this population is poorly known. Non-violence education is usually offered in and from NGOs that are often in the ideological opposition to religious institutions in our societies. Mutual lack of confidence or trust slow down the participation of believers to our peace education. The interreligious educational encounter lasts for 4 days, 2 weekends, and bring together participants of different identities who together learn how to apply non-violent communication and transformation of conflict in interreligious dialogue. For example, in one exercise, they have the opportunity to express in a non-violent way what do they appreciate about another person and their faith, and what do they have difficulty with. They put into words their image about others, and others have the opportunity to react to them. They do not talk about religious concepts generally, but rather about their own experience when they feel good and when anxious in interreligious communication. So in the training, they experience how they can say and survive the critique that is usually cut off in everyday life, or share it only with their own group because of the fear of conflict. But non-violence is not limited to personal experience. We consider that it is important to associate personal and political aspect of non-violence with the education, within the education. In the good tradition of political theology, we do not confront political difference and ideological positions. Our participants can establish a relationship with other people, being aware that they are different when they follow its fundamentals, this means needs and values in the communication, instead of fighting on the level of arguments. The training is a safe place for their open communication on topics they rarely talk about in their daily life, or topics who are presented in public discourse on polemical and not in a dialogue way, like reconciliation, plurality of identity, their personal understanding of faith. RAND and the initiative Believers for Peace recognize that some basic settings which affect the success of their activities can be practiced. Firstly, that is radical respect for equality among people that can be made visible in a non-violent way. Then, we persistently deny the inevitability or necessity of violence, and we claim that any violence is a consequence of choice for which every person needs to bear responsibility. Furthermore, it is important to us that personal values and the inspiration of faith find their expression in political action, so that our love to each other does not remain trapped in the private sphere, but also reflects on acceptance polities to refugees, for example. The Believers for Peace initiative understands nonviolence as the attitude and way of action in which personal values and political responsibility are linked in a way that politicizes the conscience, that is the notion from Dorothy Zund. Conscience of believers too. At the same time, we will resist manipulation of religious identities with the aim of controlling believers and imposing their own worldview on the whole society, which is our problem. This is achieved through critical inquiry of our actions and the impact of our communities on the entire society. Lastly, we support each other to practice non-violence, also and in spite of its public discourse that is burdened by violence. We try to be neither hard nor soft, but strong. That is the expression of Fatwa 4. So that our message is clear by what we say and also how we say and how we act. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna, for speaking to us on Believers for Peace and Nonviolent Peacebuilding. You were once again a round of applause. Thank you so much. I am now happy to introduce a fellow Jesuit, a fellow Indian, and a friend, Francis Gonsalves, who will speak on Be the Change You Want to See, Building Interfaith Solidarity for Peace in India. Francis Gonsalves is a professor of theology, journalist, and social activist. He holds a licentiate from the Gregorian University, Rome, and a PhD from the University of Madras. The former Dean of Vidyajyoti College of Theology, Delhi. He is currently Dean of Theology at the Jnanadeepa Vidyapith Pontifical Institute in Pune. In addition, he serves as an Executive Secretary of Theology and Doctrine for the Catholic Conference Bishops of India. His publications include over 200 scholarly articles and more than a dozen authored, edited books, including his most recent Feet Rooted, Hearts Radiant, Minds Raised, Living Sacraments in India. He also has a forthcoming book titled Saint Romero and Pope Francis, and many more publications. But Francis Gonsalves is also deeply concerned about social justice issues that affect the poor, the Adivasis, slum dwellers, and the prison inmates of Asia's largest prison, the Tihar jail in Delhi. His academic areas of interest include interfaith initiatives, socio-religious and subaltern movements, networking with committed groups on social justice issues, and developing the arts as sources of theology. Please welcome Francis Gonsalves.
So good afternoon, friends. Beautiful to be here to encounter scholars from all over the world and grassroots activists. And also I'm very happy here to be meeting Indian Jesuit colleague friend who's very difficult to meet in India, that is Lawrence. So you get people from all backgrounds all together discussing about peace and non-violence. Now I put before you two pictures, and I'm sure I don't require to tell you who these two people are, because both of them have been mentioned here already. Mahatma Gandhi, the great agent of non-violence and peace, Ahimsa and Satyagraha, who today is being buried in India, very honestly. And there are various readings of Mahatma Gandhi So not everybody agrees that he is a great man. And as I said, he's being buried in India today. He's also accused of solidifying the caste system in India. I won't go into details, I'll come to that later in case of questions. And Mother Teresa, for all the acclaim she won all over the world, she also has been criticized because they said that she did her works of charity with a hook attached. Namely, she was trying to convert people to Christianity, and she did not see them really as poor. She saw Jesus in them. There was no great thing that she did. She didn't see the poor as poor. Let me first explain, because I think all the speakers who've spoken, you have spoken basically from a kind of Christian background. And how insignificant, if you might call it that, is Christianity in India. India basically is a deeply religious country. You have people of all religions, as well as atheists and agnostics. The religious compared this way, you have Hinduism. I think my voice is loud enough. You have Hinduism, which is about 80% of the total population. Now we are talking of 1.36 billion people. 1.36 billion. Okay. Islam is about 14.2. See how small Christianity is. It is just 2.3%. Yet that is pretty big, which is 28 million. Sikhism, 1.7. Then you have the Buddhists, you have the Jains, you have the Parsis, Zoroastrians. You have the Baha'i religion, you have folk tribal religions, atheists, agnostics, humanists, etc. Over and above that, India is one of the most young countries in the world. So more than 50% Indians below 25 years and more than 65% are below 35 years. So it's a very young country, and I'm going to focus on the young, not because I'm young, I'm not, but because the future of India lies with these young people. And basically the Jesuits now have come out with 4 apostolic preferences, one of which is to cater to the youth. Being kenotic and self-effacing, I won't talk about the Jesuits, but I'll talk about 3 other peace initiatives. But I'll just speak a little more about Christianity in India so that you get an idea of what we are really talking about. Now look at this. The only part where you have Christians really in a kind of majority would be these 2 states over here, and that is only 19% to 10% and 9 to 5%. So in South India, Tamil Nadu and Kerala, and there you have, Western India, Karnataka, Bombay, Goa is over there, and what are called the northeastern states. The only state where you have a majority is this one, which is Mizoram, right here in the corner. So can you imagine, Christianity is basically absent in all what you see as green, in all what you see as cream. It's only present in Goa, Bombay, around there, a little bit Gujarat. In the center, a little bit, and South India, it is kind of 19 to 20, 30%. So that is what we are talking about. At the same time, we have 3 different, you have the Thomas Christians of Kerala. So people very often ask me, are your parents Christian? Are your grandfather Christian? I say, we've been Christians since the time of the Apostle Thomas. So we have a Syro-Malabar tradition and a Syro-Malankara tradition. This is the church where you have the mortal remains of St. Thomas, which is in Chennai. And if you want to see a fancy dress competition at the conclave, you look at the 3 Indian cardinals. This is an Indian cardinal who belongs to the Syro-Malabar, right? George Alancheri. The other one belongs to the Syro-Malankara, right? Who is extremist. And the other one, I think you know, one is Cardinal Oswald Gracious, who belongs to the Latin right. My name Francis Gonsalves, I belong to the Latin right, come from Goa, Bombay area. They believe that if we have Indian names, it will not reach paradise. So we had to change our names to have D'Souza, De Mello, Gonsalves, Lobo, etc., etc. And thanks to Francis Xavier, I have this name Francis. Before that, whenever anybody wants to show the church is very diverse, they always get the part where the 2 cardinals are standing, you see. So the Catholic Church, you have our 2 cardinals there, kind of in a fancy dress competition. And we have the others who are, they didn't come out with these, elaborate robes. Okay, so there is a Xavier tradition. So you have the Thomas tradition and you have the Xavier tradition. When the Jesuits came into India about 500 years ago, my parents prayed before the body of Saint Francis, minus a hand of course, which is in Rome. And that's how I was born the next year. And that's how my name is Francis. So you have a very old kind of Portuguese, British tradition. This is the Cathedral of Bom Jesus. And then you have other colonial style Latin churches, for example, that is Kolkata, St. Paul's. This is my parish. I was born and baptized in this parish, which is in Mumbai, St. Peter's Parish, run by the Jesuits of Mumbai. Now, this is the church in India. That is me in my younger days. What you see behind me is the church, is the kindergarten, is the public meeting hall. That's where we have meetings, that's where we educate all our children. This is the tribal area. We're trying to empower the women. We had self-help groups. These are children from the Barwari. This is my province, Gujarat, which is in western India. The number of Christians in Gujarat is 0.44. Less than even half a Christian. So friends, what I'm talking about is this. Imagine there's a room of 100 people trying to sell their views. And there are 2 people who are Christian, are trying to convince 98% that Christianity is a religion, Jesus Christ is Savior of the world. How would it sound? We are so small a minority, and yet we have to proclaim Jesus Christ amidst a lot of challenges, I would say. I'm not pessimistic, I wouldn't say call them difficulties, but they are challenges basically. Okay, this is for you. Fine. Now, India, religion is very, very important. Okay, so you have a Western brand of secularism. What is the separation between politics and religion is not present in India. So in India, what is secularism? Secularism basically is respect for all religions in the public sphere. So everybody can propagate his or her views in the public sphere, and everybody is treated equally. That is what secularism is in India. So everybody has their voice. Okay, it's very hard to separate religion, supposed to be private, and politics, which is public. Now most Indians live and cooperate peacefully. I've grown up with Muslims and Hindus and Jains and Parsis and Sikhs, and I feel very, very comfortable in all their celebrations. Though my parents would say, don't, bow down before their gods, so to say. That's the only thing. Otherwise we celebrate feasts and there's a lot of social intercourse, so to say, give and take among all the religions. But we tend to compare the best of our religion with the worst of others. And this happens throughout the world. If I ask you, who do you think Muslims are? I'm sure many of you will be saying, terrorists, that is the Muslim. And then Hindus now today, they worship the cow and their caste system. Christians, what do they think of us in India? Basically, they think we are foreigners. Number one. Number two, they think we are proselytizers. We're always eager to convert people by hook or by crook, so to say. So they have very negative picture also of Jesus Christ. And they don't think too much of him. This young guy for 33 years, worked for 3 years, and he saved the world before him and after him. Come on, stop kidding. Okay, so there are very basic difficulties in all of this. Now, what I'm going to do before this thing, let me just mention one more point which is happening in India and think which you're aware of. So why am I choosing this of peace initiatives in India? Because it's been thrust upon me. If I had to choose, I would have explain a little bit of the social fragmentation that we're having, the political, economic difficulties that we're having. Okay? Because India is going through elections, and we have a Hindu fundamentalist government which is gaining ground. They are very powerful. They have in their embrace, so to say, the corporate world, the multinationals. They have the priests, the upper classes, the upper caste. So you have politics and religion and economics going together. The unholy trinity, what I call. We'll think about it later for our discussion. So you have this brand of Christianity, traditional Christianity, you have new Christianity, and out of all these Christians I'm talking about 60 to 70% belong to the so-called depressed, deprived classes. You have what is called Dalits. Dalits are former untouchables. And you have the indigenous people, or the tribals, who also are economically very weak. So this is India, and this is where we as Christians are trying to proclaim the good news of Jesus Christ. With that, I'll just go into 3 peace initiatives, and I'll leave time later for any question that you might have. 3 small peace initiatives that are there. Though there are a lot of thrust, especially among us Jesuits, to highlight the injustice which is going on in India, the exploitation which is going on in India, and the peddling of lies and falsehood through the media. The media today is bought up.
That sounds
Okay,
familiar.
fine. Now, I'm going to talk of 3 peace initiatives. The first one there you have on the left is a Universal Solidarity Movement, USM. The second one is 9 is Mine. These are all for youth or children. And the third one I speak about a peace education course. But let me go on now to the first one that I am talking about. The USM, Universal Solidarity Movement. This was started by a Catholic priest more than 25 years ago. There's his name there, Father Varghese Alangadan. This is his vision. He left his parish and he wanted to start something on an interreligious basis. So his vision is this, a passionate vision for a world of peace and universal solidarity, confidence in the power and goodness of the youth, and unfailing trust in the providence of God were my assets for launching this mission. So he launched out this mission in Indore, which is the center of India where you don't have too many Christians. It was an interfaith peace initiative. Now, there are 5 paths, called them margas or conditions, for being a member of this universal solidarity movement. It's a deeply spiritual kind of movement. So there is prayer. Anybody who's a member of this movement has to pray daily for peace and forgiveness, to be an agent of reconciliation. And this prayer is interfaith prayer. So it's not just Christian prayer or Muslim prayer or Hindu prayer. Second, skip a meal once a week to express solidarity with the poor and the marginalized and donate the money saved. Very practical. Third, do a good deed daily without a selfish motive. Fourth, honor your parents, teachers, honor everybody, respect everybody. And finally, ecological aspect, respect Mother Earth and save her resources. So anybody who belongs to this movement has to keep in mind these 5 practices, which are very practical, dealing with relationship with human beings, with God, and with Mother Earth. 3 kind of dimensions of our relationships. Now, since I said India, you have to be kind of interfaith, what this father has done is taken the best of religions as principles, as ideals. So you have them there up on your screen, the universal family spirit of Hinduism and Baha'i religion. I think you have read the Baha'i faith, which is a syncretic religion. Second, the discipline and fellowship of Islam, the courage of Sikhism. Many people don't know Sikhism and the people who wear the turban. Many of them here in the US and in Canada. The compassion of Buddhism, the non-violence of Jainism. Everybody know Jainism, the religion where many people go with the mouth also covered. They believe by inhaling, small microorganisms, you'll be doing violence to them. So that is Jainism. All these are Indian religions. The cosmic solidarity of tribal religions. We have the Adivasi religions. And finally, the self-sacrifice and forgiveness of Christianity. So he's picked up, you see, the kind of defining characters of different religions and held them together as a kind of an ideal which people have to keep in mind as a kind of interfaith ideal for everybody who belongs to this movement. Now, then you have an action program comprising of 10 points. And these are the 10 points which are advocated for all the members of this USM. First is leadership. It says India is in need of leadership. So aim to promote leadership qualities and organizational skills. Second, women. As everywhere, women are exploited or treated as second-class citizens. So to empower women and to provide more opportunities for them. Third, caring and sharing. We all have excess of food and so many resources. Let us care for others who are less privileged than us. Sharing of food and shelter. Art and culture. It's a very important aspect of our humanness. Has to be tapped, our own talents. And therefore tapping talents, expression of cultural forms. A lot of cultures also in India. Light and life. Donation. Blood donation, promote life by donating your eyes or your organ donations at the end of life. Blood. Anti-abortion campaign. Respect for life and promoting life in its various manifestations. So these are the 5 points. The next 5 have to do basically with India. Literate India. India has a lot of brilliant scientists and lawyers, etc. And yet, it's about 35% of illiteracy in India. So there are many people who are illiterate in India who have just studied, the first or second standard. Green India, which is eco clubs to foster planting of trees, organic farming, anti-pollution campaign. Clean India, promote cleanliness in personal and public life, undertaking cleanliness drives and stuff like that. Knit India, to have integration, harmony, interreligious prayer meetings and dialogue. This is a great idea. And finally, heal India. So many people sick, malnourished. India is known as the malnourished capital of the world. It's sometimes the hunger capital of the world. So we have billionaires in India, rubbing shoulders with the best of all over the world economically. But this is the state of my country. So these are the 10 concrete programs which are kind of advocated for members of the USM. Now what about the outreach and the future of USM, Universal Solidarity Movement for Peace? The Silver Jubilee was held in 2018, so they already completed 25 years. Since then, 7,403 student leaders in 370 batches have been to Indore. It is the place where this movement started off, from 22 states of India. And this is what Father Varghese says, the founder: a movement should exist only if it is relevant to the times. If it is relevant and needed, people will support it. When it ceases to be relevant, it should die. In the death of the structure, the spirit of the movement will be alive. So he's not concerned about the future. He says, I've started a movement. It will snowball into something beautiful, and people who are interested will join hands. If not, it will die a natural death, so to say. Let's go to the second movement. Nine is Mine. This is my friend on the left. He's a Christian brother, formerly called the Irish Brothers from Ireland. They have a branch there in India. He's an Indian brother, Steve Rocha. And Nine is Mine. What is the movement about? It is a participatory children's advocacy initiative to call for 9% of the gross domestic product, GDP in India, to be committed to children's health, that is 3%, and education, 6%, as promised by the Indian government in 2004. Now the Indian government is very cunning, especially the present government. What are they doing? They are decreasing the percentage of social benefit schemes to children, to women, to the poor, and they're giving a lot of lollipops, facilities to corporates to come into India. You want to come into India, you're most welcome. Please bring in your money, bring in your dollars, your euro, etc. You're most welcome. And you can take whatever you want from India, no problem. This is the discourse today. So this is something which this guy and his team are fighting against, especially involving children. So Nine is Mine gets that thing. Give us our rightful 9% of GDP. Now, numbers 2, 3 and 4 of the Millennium Development Goals are the following: to achieve universal primary education. It's very sad that many children in India are working, they don't go to school. They are working in brick factories, they are working coolies in the railway station and all kinds of things. Second, to promote gender equality and empower women. And third, to reduce child mortality. Child right abuses anywhere are a concern for children everywhere. So creating awareness among children that I might be well looked after by my parents, etc. But what about the others? So let's get all the children united. They're such a big force in India, and let's put their problems ahead, their issues ahead, to the powers that matter in India, to those who have power in India. So the aims and activities: to create vibrant networks of child rights, NGOs, non-governmental organizations. Second, to provide children with local, national and international forums towards effectively engaging with policies and policymakers. Third, to create awareness of child rights by organizing children's parliament, drawing up children's manifesto for policymakers, etc. This children's parliament thing is very interesting. They get big groups of children and inform them, create awareness about the idea of India. India is not a Hindu nation. Through the major discourse, they are trying to convert India into a Hindu nation, Hindu Rashtra. They say no, India basically is a composite nation of various cultures, of various religions, etc. And there is a constitution. Create awareness of what the constitution gives to its citizens. The Indian constitution is extremely beautiful because there are provisions for all the religions, there are provisions for the minorities, there are provisions for the weaker sections of society which many are not aware of. Okay, and therefore create awareness for the children and put these children in touch. We have a kind of mock parliament, and when parliament is in session, the children also asked to put forward their issues and things like that. Okay, what do they do? There are various methods, and one very interesting method is a kind of a children's circus. So these children, many of them orphans and poor people from the streets, etc., they put up a very interesting kind of circus. Now I just show you a little bit of that circus. Salesian, who's Peter Gonsalves, no relative of mine. The aim and vision, this is peace education courses in schools. So this Salesian has evolved a course which he sends out to all the schools in India, helping them to engage. You can get his material on the internet, you can just check out the name. His material is available on the internet. So his aim and vision to promote a positive non-violent environment, to participatory training and planning of committed teachers, parents and activists, to educate youth for mutual respect and collaboration in a pluralistic society through a concrete training program. So he's devised his own program for children right from 5 right up to 15. The objectives: to ensure schools are free of violence, conflict, discrimination and bullying. Second, to teach mutual respect, appreciation of diversity, inclusion of differences, conflict resolution, clean environments. Third, to teach peace theory, peaceful practices and strategies. Fourth, to enable teachers to better use the exercises in peace education manual in the schools. And this is how his book looks, which is the whole syllabus, which you guys can download on the internet. That is the thrust of the peace education exercises. Through experiential and participatory learning, children are helped to develop their knowledge, attitudes and skills in order to become peace-filled persons and proactive peace builders. The lessons raise awareness, provoke thinking, challenge stereotypes, point to solutions and incite to action. To be relevant to all South Asians, it's basically for a South Asian kind of context. Peace education exercises have multi-ethnic, pluricultural and interreligious stress. I finally end with this beautiful prayer of universal solidarity movement. Maybe we can also say it together. God our friend, mother and father, may you be praised in your diversity of name and forms by the whole universe. May we experience a world guided by your values of justice, fraternity, equality, freedom, peace, hope and love. May your will be the motive force of all our dreams and actions. Give us daily food for our body, mind and soul. Strengthen us to forget and forgive without counting the cost. Forgive us our offenses as we forgive those who offended us in the past. Bless all those who offend us now with your peace. Strengthen us always to stand for truth without fear and walk the path of light with hope, trust, optimism, and creativity. Protect us from all evil forces and liberate us from hatred, despair, and depression. Om Shanti. Om Shanti. Om Shanti.
What is this Om Shanti? What does mean Om Shanti?
Om is the universal creation. Om, A-U-M.
Shanti is peace.
Shanti.
Peace.
Pe, Pache.
Thank you, Francis, for speaking about two movements that speak for non-violence in India. And a timekeeper is doing a good job because we are right in time. And while speaking, Francis spoke of young India. And we have a young Kenya today speaking with us now. We have now with us Elizabe Kanini Kimau, who will speak on the Catholic Church's unexploited power in connecting people at the grassroots. Elizabe Kanini Kimau lives and works as a grassroots peace builder in northern Kenya, near the Ethiopian border, among pastoralist communities, social groups based on livestock raising. And she is the founding director of the Horn of Africa Grassroots Peace Forum, HAP Forum, a national NGO in Kenya. Additionally, she is a visiting lecturer at the Reconcile Peace Institute in South Sudan. RPI offers comprehensive 3-month training sessions to church and community leaders engaging in trauma recovery, peace work, and or development in South Sudan. Kimau holds an MA in Peace and International Relations from Hekima Institute of Peace and International Relations, Nairobi, and has also done work in peace studies to the Mindolo Ecumenical Foundations in Zambia. Her previous professional roles include serving as an alumni liaison officer for Mercy Beyond Borders in South Sudan and as a technical consultant in peace and trauma healing for the Tombura Yambio, I hope I pronounced right, Catholic Diocese in South Sudan's Western Equatorial State. Please welcome Kanini with a round of applause.
Good afternoon. As you have heard, I'm from the grassroots, so it's not easy journey to transit from the grassroots to this kind of setting, so I've been calling you several times to assist. Being the last speaker, the last person to share, listening to very wonderful sharing since the first day, I think I'll be justified just to say amen. Thank you. And then we continue. However, I'd like to share something small on from an African perspective on unexploited power within the church in building deeply divided societies. When I received the invitation to this college, I was very confused. I was deep at the grassroots in northern Kenya. And then I read something which caught my attention, put back your sword. And in the environment where I was living in, it was a very violent environment. So then there were the two voices, put back your sword. I was also hearing, take up your guns. And the people whom I was living with. Then I started asking myself, from an African context, which voice is louder? And the words of Jesus to Peter, put back your sword, seems to fall on deaf ears in our today's society. Especially wars which we experience in Africa. I said I'm going to share from the African context which I know best. We have heard from other situations and the experience is not very different. When we look at African context, I know some speakers shared like Dr. Elias analyzed so well a lot of violent situations in this country. We have wars ranging from we have terrorist attacks, we have civil wars, genocides, inter-ethnic violence, all sorts of violence. So, these people living in this context, there are so many voices which we are hearing in this kind of context. Where are these voices coming from? From some of the cultures where revenge is embedded in some of the cultures as we will see later on. From the political leaders who are using the people, especially at the grassroots. From the rebel leaders, we heard about those groups. From the business people, some are trading on natural resources, others on guns and also. There are so many voices which we are hearing in this context, and the voices are, take up your guns, but not put down your sword. So I don't know whether I was the right person to be invited here. So the wars that Africa experiences clearly indicates that the louder voice is take up your gun, or an instrument of violence, rather than put back your sword. And that is why many people have already shared the urgent call within the church to find ways to utilize its potentials. The church has a lot of potentials, and I feel from my experience they are not fully utilized to make our voice louder. And one of the biggest potential of the church is, from the African context, you find people at the grassroots are living especially in very marginalized area. The area where I live in northern Kenya has been referred several times as the people are being referred as forgotten people. And I remember when I was there coming to Nairobi, they could ask me, how is Kenya? Or say hi to people in Kenya. But they're still Kenyans. But they're being forgotten. And some people, I remember, I had a classmate from that area, and she was telling us that the church was like their government. They knew the church. She was not even a Catholic. But they knew the Catholic Church as the government because it has always been with the people, providing all services to the people, even at this grassroots level. So the church taking a leading role to protect life and dignity of the people, especially those at the grassroots, who are mostly immersed in violence, is very important. And there's something very important to realize here. Journeying with the people who have been in violence for a very long time is not a very short journey. It is not like the case of Peter, put back your sword and then they put back down their guns. It's a very long journey. And the first step is the church needs to understand the people at the grassroots. So it's very, very important to understand the nature of these people at the grassroots. They form the majority of the society at the grassroots. And these are the people who are worst affected by the wars. Women are raped. The war affects everybody. But these are mostly affected because they are the grassroots. During civil wars, during political wars, these are the people who are used to kill one another. They are deeply divided. Anybody who wants, because of personal interest, they will divide the people at the grassroots on their ethnic groups. Father Elias was saying these people think in terms of block, you know. If I'm a Kikuyu, I will stand with that. And what happens? I will go and divide Kikuyu from the other ethnic groups. So if I have my own interest. And that is what is happening also in northern Kenya. These people are very traumatized. They kill one another. They destroy property. And majority of these people, as I said, they live in very marginalized areas where there are no roads, neither even security. Especially where I live in northern Kenya, we have been working with this populist group. Their conflict has been seen as part of life. When you see them attacking one another, it's not even news in the television because nobody will be interested, the rest of the country to look at this because it's their way of life. But living with them helped me to know these are also human beings. Living in violent situation is not way of their life. And I want to share my experience living with these people. I went to northern Kenya in 2009 with a group of students. And I also have the same year I went to South Sudan. And my experience in these areas, I met people who are being born in war, growing in war, married in war, and some aging in war. And I observed that, especially when I was in northern Kenya, because I was living at the grassroots, and I'm also living at the grassroots with the people, any kind of attack was responded immediately. There was no time to wait the government because for them the government does not work. So they defend themselves immediately. When there is an attack, it was responded immediately with another attack, which caused more killing. And when I decided to go and live with the people, I lived in a very insecure area. It was an NDP. And I had a lot of interaction with children. I focused on the Rendile-Borana conflict. And I lived among the Rendiles first. And I also had a lot of interaction with the children. And I remember asking them different questions at different times. One time I asked them, I asked one boy, when you grow up, what will you do? He told me, I'm going to kill Borana and bring back our livestock. That was, he was like 8 years old. And I remember another time I was with grade 1, what you would call grade 1 here, and I asked them, I wanted to start showing them that also the parents of Borana were also created by God, but that was a very difficult journey. I asked them first, who created your parents? They told me God. All of them told me God created our parents. What about the parents of the Borana children? Who created them? They told me they were created, and it was not one child, all of them. by the devil immediately. That was what was in the mind of these children. I gave them papers several times because I started helping a school where teachers had run away. And then you couldn't coordinate the whole school, could give some papers to draw. They could draw people killing one another. And then staying with these people helped me learn something, which I learned from Bishop Adide also. If the church is committing herself to join with these people, it is very important to understand the people simply because if you do not understand the people, you'll find using the wrong approaches to reach these people. Bishop Taban, we saw his poster and people have talked about Bishop Taban, is a friend of mine. And one time we were sitting on a table taking tea with him. We had a big group, and then one person asked him, it was Bishop Taban worked very hard during the war before the independence. And also even after the violence after independence, he continued working. And then somebody asked Bishop about the hope for peace in South Sudan. Because it was a hopeless situation. You remember McDonald's pulled out, they ran away. When the violence came again, they were very disappointed. They said, we no longer use our money in South Sudan again. But Bishop Taban was asked about this and he smiled and said, he has hope for peace in South Sudan, despite the violence. And he gave an example of a buffalo, a wounded buffalo. He said, when he was a young boy, he used to go for hunting. And he said it is very dangerous when you wound a buffalo to follow it. If you are not aware how to follow a wounded buffalo, to turn and kill, it's very dangerous. And the same people who have lived in war, if you don't understand them, these people have just immersed in violence. They become very violent. They will kill you. So it's very important for you to learn, to understand how to follow these people. So we say that socializing people who are used to violence as a way of life to embrace a culture of non-violence is a long journey. And it is a journey which calls a faithful agent of transformation, a person who understands the people. Like Bishop Aride never lost hope because he understood these people very well. He understands the context in which they are living in. So we need such kind of agent to follow, to accompany the people. So the church stands as the best channel at the grassroots to do this. Because, as I said, it's always with the people. And again, the church is motivated by the gospel. Jesus said, go to the whole world, proclaim. I hope the theologian who are here, that's the right verse of the Bible. Jesus sends everybody, commissions as Christians to go. So, and also, we have the social teaching of the gospel, the catechism which helps to form the Christians. All these values. So we are called to this. Is it possible to undergo this journey? From this violent situation to a peaceful situation. As I said, it's a long journey, but it is possible. And I start with the examples of many people who have taken, within the church, who have taken the leading role. We have heard some of them from other countries. And the case of Bishop Taban Paride. And whenever, like the peace village which Bishop Taban Paride has established in South Sudan, there are people from all over many tribes living together there. And they're living at peace. And he says when you go there, you don't need, there are no guns in this village where Bishop Taban is living in. So it shows it's possible. Bishop Odama in northern Uganda. We have another late Bishop Korilo of Kenya who has worked a lot with the pastoral violence in Eldoret area. And also we have Bishop Peter Kiara. This one comes from the diocese I am at. And last year, the diocese was going back to violence. But Bishop led a group of Interfaith group, and they managed to calm the situation. And here, violence is extremely bad because there are a lot of guns here. Guns come from Somali. This area is not far from Somali. It's not far from Ethiopia. Another guns comes from South Sudan to this region. So people are well armed in this area. So I also want to share my experience journeying with this kind of violent people living in violent situation. The successful journey helps me to understand if we recommit ourselves as Christian and also the church, it is possible to save many lives. I went to northern Kenya and I said I lived with Redire and Borana communities. It was not easy journey to live with these people. I was a woman. I am a woman. Going into a patriarchal society. And those who understand from African context, it's not easy for a woman to be accepted to stand in front of elders. You cannot give an idea. Women are perceived as children. And this, I was a woman, not from that area, from another region, going to this area. I had the right skills, the right motivation as a Christian to go and work with these people. But the block was being a woman and being a stranger to these people because they were so suspicious after many years of violence. Then I noticed the church was connected with Borana. The Catholic Church was connected with the Boranas. They were also connected with the Rendires. So what did I do? I requested one priest who was saying mass in those areas if I can go with him. After going with him several times, the people knew me. And after the people started to understand, because the priest was good, he could give me time to say hi to the people, and sometimes even to give the homily to the people. So they started accepting me, but just a few Christians who came to church. Then I decided to use these few Christians, and I went to live with the people in one of the NDPs. The first thing, because there were no means of transport, the priest took me to the IDP. And then the elders called him aside because I told them I would like to teach their children free. If they gave me a place to sleep, not special, but where they sleep, I will stay with them. And then they identified a place. And when I arrived, the elders were not seeing me. They called the priest around and they said, will this small girl manage to teach our children? The priest assured them she also teaches other people in colleges, so she will manage. So when I lived with them, they were very careful looking at me, how I will behave with them. And I was referred as Borodadi, someone who never belonged, who doesn't belong to them. And I lived with the people. They noticed I was eating the food they were eating. I was walking with them. I never judged them even during the violence time. And slowly but slowly they started accepting me. And that acceptance built a very strong foundation for the process of transformation which I took with the people. I was also accepted by the Morans. Morans are the young generation of this pastoralist community. They're usually very well armed and they do not interact with women. And they accepted me. Another thing which I got from the church, being a Christian, I was motivated by my values as Christian. I respected life. Many people discouraged me in going to that area. My classmates laughed at me from university to teach ABC, the basics. And many people discouraged me, but I said, but these are lives getting lost. Even if I not save the whole situation, I can save even one. Even if not now, I can plant seeds which can save lives in future. And that's what I did. This was the first time where I went to live with the people. And especially these Morans, I never judged, they are very well armed, but I never told them the guns are bad. I never condemned them because of having guns. Like the one at the Minto, we had a long journey, and they had to help me. When they transformed, they helped me start transforming other Morans. Yet, when you kill, you have a very big ring. You are given a lot of a big ring because of that. Yet, so many of them. But yet, slowly by slowly, he managed to leave the violence. And many people left the violence, and they joined me. We started working together. As we talk now, Rendira and Borana are living at peace, and they are helping now. We have the Borana-Gabra conflict. They're helping me transform that conflict too, because I've been journeying with them, working with them. So, that gives a bit of hope. And then I was confused with the topic of our discussion here, forming the church, forming the grassroots church. Then I was confused. How can we form the church and the church is already formed? I looked at the gospel, is very clear. Jesus talks about love, forgiveness, service. The catechism is very clear. I looked, being created in the image of God. The social teaching of the church. And also the Pope himself, the messages he's giving us. So what do we need to do? The Pope bringing peace is a central part, central to the mission of Christ. He's reminding us as Christians that we are being called as ambassadors of Christ's reconciliation. What is new? Then I felt we need to recommit the church to this. And then I was looking at the conflicts in Africa, the percentage of Christians there. And then I was wondering, what has gone wrong here? So, where are the gaps between the teaching of the church and what we are seeing at the grassroots? So I feel it is very important to carry out our research to know what is the problem. Is it the formation of the catechumens? Is it the way gospel is being preached in this violent context? So it's very important to look what has gone wrong, and the readings, the books, the good guidance is already there. So it's very important to look at that. So, and it is a very urgent call of the church because life continues to be what? To be lost in this African context. There is also a need of process of conscientization. These are my ideas from what I see. For people to respond, to know their responsibility. And there is also a need for this non-violence to be taught not as a different subject from the gospel and peace from different subjects from the gospel. They are all carrying the same messages. So it's good to conscientize people to take this responsibility, because you have seen the Christians who have taken the responsibility to build peace, a lot of results have been achieved. And this needs to be done even when faith is being formed and the people are being formed in their faith at the grassroots. So I think I will not continue with that. I mean, you can read the rest of the points. So I say ascending, and then we see how we can do to save lives, especially of majority who are suffering at the grassroots. Thank you.
Asantini Kanini, for your testimony of non-violence work. Friends, you'll agree with me, we had a fascinating presentation from 3 different continents. We had Europe, Asia and Africa. Working in the grassroots level for non-violence. So may I now invite Anna, Francis and Kanini to come over here. I also invite Anne-Marie, who will help if need translating from French if required. Anne-Marie will help Anna to translate something if required. Anna find difficult to communicate in English fully. If you have difficulty, Anna-Marie will help out. Yeah. So we have a few directions to follow, guidelines to be followed for the questionnaire. Let me read that for you. First, ask your question from the standing microphone and please speak directly into the mic. This is important for 2 reasons. You already know it, but let me read it. So that the rest of us can hear the question and so that our video camera will pick it up. We record all the sessions, I am told. Please limit yourself to 1 question out of respect for everyone's time and for others who also have questions. Please have a question rather than a comment or story. So there is always the chance to talk more in depth with the speakers after the session. We have nearly 35 minutes with us. So over to you. Questions? Pardon? Sorry.
mean, okay, that's yeah. Yes, please.
Before we open it up for questions, let us give a round of applause to all the three speakers.
Thank you all very much. It's quite a gift to get such a rich panel very late in the afternoon. Thank you for that. I have a question for Anna. I was wondering if you could speak to how the complications of interfaith dialogue when there are substantial internal divisions within the traditions themselves. If our colleague Slava Jakovic were here, some of her work on the conflict between the Franciscans in different regions during the war, and some of the difficulties afterwards. I was hoping to hear from your experience on internal conflicts within the Catholic world, how that plays out.
I can speak about conflict in Catholic Church most because I am in the church. I know this better than in Orthodox. I know it is also the Islamic community, Muslim community. I know they have also they own conflict, but on the example of Catholic, I can say mostly it is similar. I think the Franciscan that you mentioned, the Franciscan in Sarajevo, because we have different Franciscan community and different political view of different Franciscans. Franciscans in Sarajevo, they have their own peace strategy, and they make it in they have their own conscience, awareness of their mission in this region, and they make it with or without bishop. They look to be with the church. You have some people like Drago Bojic, who is mostly out. But you have Ivo Matkovic and somebody know Mile Babic. They know to make this diplomacy intern of church, and they make their own connection, relationship programs. We are sometime together because we cooperate with Franciscans. We cooperate with every who has knowledge about peace theology and nonviolence. We have this question, how to build peace in the church. Because when we are peace builder, we are trying to be in peace, we cannot only think about peace relation with Muslims, with Orthodox, and we don't think about our own conflict. How to make it, and I think that is mostly with relationship between the people. But what we have as a problem is not ecclesiastical problem. We have political problem of nationalism, of building, of making too close Catholic and national interests. So that sometimes church representative, I mean priests, they play a role of political representative, and that is not allowed, on my opinion. That is what they don't do. Their duty is to serve the gospel and to show the values of Christianity to all people. No, they to serve for national interest of Christ. That is not allowed. That is our purpose.
Next.
Thank you very much for all the stories. I was fighting off jet lag, but I thought they were still very interesting. And Elizabeth, I have a question for you. I thought that you also narrated your story very beautifully. But I heard, all the gaps, the challenges, the warnings as you work for peace, actually in your context. So I was wondering if you have any stories of change, as a result of the initiatives that you have taken in your community. And second, would the Catholic Nonviolence Initiative actually be helpful in your context? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I couldn't share everything within 25 minutes. There are a lot of successful stories from the journey I've been with the people. And the first one is people started working for their own peace. The second one, you have seen the Morans with the guns initially. One of the Moran was at the Mindu who had killed so many people, transformed, and in one of our meetings, we had still another Moran from the other community who had also had the same experience. So we had pairs of Morans who also almost killed one another during the violence. They decided to become friends, forgive one another, then become friends. And they started preaching peace among other Morans. They stopped a lot of killing. When people were trying to come and attack, they said, no, don't go and attack the other village. And also I remember one Moran asking me, after a very long process, Madam Kanini, what is the use of my gun? I don't need my gun anymore. So there's these kind of stories and others which have happened. Even the children now, they are playing with the children. The ones who are telling me they go and kill the Borana, they are playing with the Boranas now. And the one thing, it's like a miracle in the area is, they see the marriage, and nobody thought Rendire can marry a Borana. Now there are a lot of intermarriages taking place, a lot of visiting, people trading with one another. The livestock is very precious to these people. Whenever raided, there was a lot of attacks. But now in case one person goes to raid, they are traced and returned to the owner which has never been before. So there are other stories like this in that area.
Thank you for the three wonderful presentations. I'm going to ask you this question to the three of you, but from the perspective of you as a practitioner, okay? And especially to Elizabe. Where do you find the resources for resilience? You spoke about a long and difficult journey, and you, Francis, you're in a very difficult, you're such a minority. Anna, you too, it's a very difficult work. So we're talking about year and after year of engaging this struggle. How do you stay faithful, and where do you find sources for resilience? And don't give me abstracts. I want some concrete. Oh, Lord. Concrete. Thank you.
It's a very difficult question, yes. I remember with the examples, this was a very long journey in a very difficult situation. The area where I was, there were no means of transport. At least now it's better 10 years down the line. There was no network where you can communicate with friends. But one thing which kept me going is I came to realize later, peace building is a call. And the person who calls you gives you the strength to continue. There are many times which I asked myself, Kanini, your friends are getting good money. You are connected with they are connected, I'm not connected. What am I doing here? But later on, I got the energy and also saw these are still human beings. They became my best friend until I had very good friends within the community. I never saw them as illiterate. I saw them as my brothers and sisters with so much potentials. And I liked that. And up to this time, they are my friends. They call me every time. I was making jokes with my people, even my family members. Whenever there is an accident or terrorist attack, if I'm not in Mozambique, the first person to call me, people at the grassroots, They go look for network and ask me, Kanini, are you safe? There was a time there was a very bad accident in the western part of Kenya. And they said, Kanini travels a lot. Let us see whether she was there, whether she's safe. During the Ethiopian crash, also had it, the Ethiopian airline. They were calling me, but my family, my friends were not calling me. So God has always given me that energy. And those people became very close of me, caring. I could go some places, even the people feed you so well. You don't need even to think. To think about this and this and this. So I always felt at home with the people, and that gave me strength always. Even the time I wanted to go, it's like leaving my family.
Ladies first.
He was not saying anything. He was, what is concrete? Here we speak many times about God and gospel and so on. But my way was another verse. I was first on the peace building. I was Christian, that's not a problem. But I was firstly in the peace building, and I see, oh, it is complicated. It is not what I have my strong. So, peu à peu, I'm coming to this that is concrete, relate to my faith or to my prayer. It is, and that is what motivates me, because now my faith is concrete. In the peace building, I don't think that everybody must be a peace builder, but for me, in the peace building, it is concrete. It is not something abstract, but it is something what I do with. And this to be, I am not the chief of peace building. I have quelqu'un à qui je peux me pousser, que je peux qui peut me tenir.
I have support. I have people who help me and can support me and advance our efforts.
And with the time, I see it's not, Dan Bedigan spoke that you don't have results, you don't have success in the nonviolence. And I think also we don't have success, but we see our trust, we see our what, and that you see after 10, 20, 30 years of working, and that is what you spoke yesterday about sense. In every situation where I am, I think now, because I am old in peace building, in every situation my life has sense. So I think I'm not sure that I do something for others. I do something for me to make my life fulful. I think that is what me. And that make joy, that make also trouble, that make but joy. And my energy is when I am angry. When I am angry, I have not fear, and I want to show that it's not true. That is what gives me up. And I have very good friends. I get very good surrounding in there I live and work.
Yeah, before I answer your question, I want to express my happiness to be blessed among women. I'm the only man who's sitting. I'm with two women on either side who are very experienced, and I appreciate that so many women's voices have been heard at this particular conference. I go to many conferences and you have one or two women speaking with a lot of males. There were 6. In the past 2.5 days, there were 6 women and 10 men who spoke. 60% is pretty good, very good. Very concretely, I find myself, divided and torn apart by the many hats which I wear. I'm the Dean of Theology in a Jesuit faculty. There are 2 in India. Dean of 450 young men who are going to be priests, very clerical-minded, waiting to celebrate the sacraments, not only for purely religious motives, but also for the power, the prestige, and all the other things. Okay, I have to complete a syllabus given to me by the CCE of Rome, Catholic Education of Rome, that gives me a syllabus to teach my students. Big majority are men, a few women here and there. So that's as a theologian and as a Dean of Theology, I have to be faithful to that kind of job which I have. Second, I'm the Executive Secretary of the CCBI, which is the Conference of Catholic Bishops in India. When they have to formulate something, they ask me to write it out, a rough text, they give me ideas and I write. I write in a very radical way, calling a spade, and then they clamp down upon me. Francis, be careful. We are bishops, we are 2%, we cannot be pointing an accusing finger at the government because tomorrow they're going to come at us, we're going to be persecuted. We are already persecuted. So I'm sworn to silence by the bishops of India, who also have to think about their people in remote villages, number one. Number two, have to be careful of their institutions, which are very important to them for completing the work. That's the second stream. The third stream, I'm a journalist of 2 national dailies, Mystic Mantra, a column I write every fortnight, of Asian Age and Deccan Chronicle. I've been told by the editor, please don't be political and don't be boring. We've tried many Christians and they've been either political or boring, therefore we're asking you. This was on the 1st of April 2010, and every fortnight from the 1st of April 2010 to last week, I wrote articles in this. So that's how I have to think also to talk to India. And believe me, who are the people who hate my writing? Can you take a guess? No? Fundamentalist Christians. Radical Christians. If I write in one article, you know how beautiful Jesus and Mahatma Gandhi spoke of peace, the next year I get some Christian telling me, how dare you put in the same article, Mahatma Gandhi was human being and Jesus Christ was Son of God. You see, so the fundamentalists of all religions, first and foremost, you wouldn't call a fundamentalist a religionist, but they are all the same. So that's another problem which I have. And finally, the poor. My dear friends, that picture you saw, these are the Christians that we have. We have untouchables, former untouchables who are Christians. We have Dalits whose land is being robbed. The so-called development which you read about. My Prime Minister goes around hugging Obama, goes around hugging Trump and, rally with all the world leaders showing that, their buddies kind of. This guy has got blood on his hands. We've had genocide in our country. 2002, there were 1,500 Muslims killed. Today in India, Muslims are being lynched for suspecting that they are peddling beef. It's cows, cow is a holy animal. So a lot of murders going on, a lot of persecutions going on, and this is the poor whose voice I want to echo, amplify. It's not very easy given all these different compulsions. So that's what the option for the poor means to me, because that is one of my Jesuit options as a theologian, as a journalist, as a social activist, and as a Christian.
My question is primarily to you, Elizabe, in the grassroots, among the people you're living and where you're living. I can only imagine the trauma that you witness and that you try to address from day to day. The kind of trauma, devastating, unspeakable trauma that we witnessed in the eyes of the young girl whom Danny presented to us, who witnessed the death of her own father. What I'm wondering about is what kind of what kind of resources and rituals you can draw upon in the grassroots to somehow bring about healing, although healing may not be possible, but some peace, what healing means in the grassroots, facing and living with that kind of trauma.
Thank you very much for asking that. I even wanted to put it as one of the recommendations because working at the grassroots in an area with so much violence and there are no facilities where you can go for healing, you break down and you are no longer able to continue. At this time, I've withdrawn from the area. I'm not going consistently to Mozambique as I used to go because of that trauma. And looking for places to go and after healing, they're very expensive places in Kenya. The places are very expensive. I've not heard of a place where a person working at the grassroots can just rush, go and rest. However, I have some friends, some religious friends, where I can go and stay and rest. And one is there, Sister Wamuyo has been calling me to a conference, such kind of people. And also I have also some friends who have been even offering counseling for free. So thank God for these friends, because if they were not my friends, I could pay a lot of money. And working at the Grassroots, I decided not to work with so much money, because the peace will depend on the money, and when the money is finished, the peace will be also finished. So I've been also working, looking for other ways to survive than depending, asking so much money to come in that area. And actually, much of the trauma was also from the church, because I faced a lot of, not the church, I call the church, there are individuals within the church, it's not the whole church. I was welcomed by some members within the church and rejected by some members within the church, because they thought I was using this as a strategy to get money. And they couldn't understand whether this was the right mission. But thank God I did not hate them, it's only that I thought the epiphany has not arrived. When God wants to reveal to them what I was doing. So that was the issue. So what I can say is the friends I had, and also the people themselves, taught me about God. My faith increased, because when you are in violent environment, the only thing you are left with is God. Because you don't know whether you will survive tomorrow, the following minute or not. So you leave everything to God. So they helped me know God. I think there's one girl, up to this time I'm living with her in my house in Nairobi. I remember one time we were walking together in the area. I was very insecure because I could walk from one place to the other. And then I was so afraid. And then she asked me, Kanini, what's wrong with you? You don't know God. Leave everything to God. When God wants you, He'll take you whenever He wants you. So don't be afraid. And so I also started getting a lot of strength from learning about God in a practical way from these people. Thank you.
Let me echo the thanks again for all the beautiful work that you all are doing at the grassroots level, and for presenting that here. The Catholic Nonviolence initiative that a bunch of us are involved in one way or another with, the end game of this at this point seems to be to get Pope Francis to write an encyclical on nonviolence. And I'm just wondering, is that going to be useful to you at the Grassroots? I'm going to split that into two questions. So, in what ways might that be useful or not at the Grassroots, and what else could be done? I mean, we're academics, and so we think, aha, what we really need is a document, right? If we get all the right words together, then everything's going to change. And I think it might be used for that. So the two questions again. One is that going to be useful, and if so, how? And the other question is, what else might a Catholic nonviolence initiative do besides, hopefully kind of result in a document?
I think encyclical, I read encyclical, and I don't know who more. But document, well, my strategy to work on the public, on the media, is to read documents of Second Vatican Council, documents of encyclical, and to speak about. So I don't say this and this priest is nationalist, but I say it is possible to have autonomy between politics and church, because in the document of Second Vatican Council there is this and that. That is a way of education. So encyclical can be also this, but I think in my region or in my church, Pope Francis is not the fan. It's not the star. It's many priests who is again Pope Francis. Maybe my colleague who is agnostic, he said he thought it is good to have all men in Vatican. Because mostly the agnostic and atheist in Croatia love Pope Francis, and the Catholic or conservative Catholic. So, but what you say, what we need reference. Reference can be an event like conference in Rome, where we were, 2016. Reference can be something what Bishop Conference told in America, in German, in French. So I can say the bishops, I know how can I say that it's something what is like argument. We struggle for one society in which religion is present in the public, but society will respect plurality of worldview. That is our struggle. And here we need reference. And I think meet each other, have conference, or that's what we are here. That is something what helped me to make other projects or to make other initiatives.
I love Pope Francis. I have not completed my sentence. I love Pope Francis because he's taken my name and he belongs to my congregation. And believe it or not, he's the first Pope who's listened to in India. Why? Because he speaks in imagery. He's a powerful image on the screen. When he came out, he says, Pragate par me. In India, we were all silent. Very soon, he took his bag and he went out of the bureaucracy of the institution. Maundy Thursday, not too upset to shake the boat too much in the afternoon, he washed the feet of men, women, Muslim women. It was a whole new discourse. He spoke of the smell of the sheep. Challenge to me. He spoke of airport bishops. He spoke of Mataism, too much of activity. He spoke of spiritual Alzheimer's. And now he bent down at the feet of South Sudanese leaders and kissed their feet. What are the message do you want? Be the change you want to see. That is what Mahatma Gandhi said. And I think Pope Francis walks the talk. Number one. A document, look at his documents. Look at Evangelii Gaudium. Look at the Laudato Si. He begins with the context. This is the problem in our world, north, south, east, west. Then he goes to an analysis using all the disciplines. Then he comes to a Christian discourse. I, as a Christian, as head of the Catholic Church, see in my tradition this inspiration. But what do you see as a Muslim? What do you see as a Buddhist? What do you see as an atheist, as an agnostic? And where can we meet? I believe there's only one meeting point. And that's not fullness. If I say Jesus Christ has the fullness of reality, He is the fullness of salvation. Sorry, you can take your Jesus Christ, I'm a Muslim. Sorry, you take your Jesus Christ, I'm a Buddhist. Sorry, you take your Jesus Christ, I'm an atheist. It's not the point of fullness, it's at the point of emptiness, I think. When I come to you and I speak of kenosis, a Buddhist can understand me because he or she has a point of reference which is shunyata. A Hindu can recognize me because they have vairagya, detachment and all of that. An atheist also, an agnostic, like the philosopher Jnani Vatimo, he speaks of a ontology of kenosis. Emptiness everybody can understand. If I come to you and I say, friend, I know a lot of my religion, what about your religion? I know a lot of my culture, what about your culture? So I think that's the point where we can talk at the interreligious level, which is important if you want this document to be meaningful to the whole world. Otherwise nobody from my country, for example, would listen to it now. And then I speak of this nexus. I think we have to call a spade a spade. Irrespective of religion, look at the history of ideas. Think of Constantine Christianity. The first 2-3 centuries of Christianity, the church was built on the blood of martyrs. The minute Constantine became emperor, all the clandestine, the catacombs, etc. were closed, it became an open religion, but with that came all the powers, all the privileges. Then you had the bishops with their, all the symbols of power and their ring and all of that. Whether it is in India, and that was Natto, you had that, small pyramid on top. Who was on that pyramid? The chief priest there. So you always have the political power, the religious power and the economic power always, irrespective of religion, they are always good friends. Because they have to support each other. A fourth demon has entered here, and that is the media. Very powerful today. So we have to unearth, the strands of those three, call a spade, and say, this is politics, this is economics, this is religion. Because they're normally conflated, and that's detrimental, that's suicidal. So I think that has to somehow or the other come into a document. Thank you.
When I was, a day before I came here, I met a chairman of a Catholic parish which has so big, many people in Nairobi. And I asked him whether he knows the Pope's message on non-violence of 2017. He said he has never heard about it. So I did not dare ask the one for 2019. So this shows that encyclical without Catholic non-violence initiative at the grassroots will mean nothing. Because the messages which Pope is already giving, it seems there is no good channel in which they are trickling down to the people at the grassroots. However, if there is encyclical and a lot of mobilization, conscientization and teaching about it, for people to become aware about it and the message, then it will be very helpful in these ways. The church, with its power, connected to these people, sometimes it can be a block. It is a very good entry point to these communities, but it can be a block where you cannot access these communities if the person in charge, either a priest or whatever, does not accept you. But if people are convinced, it is our responsibility to work for peace. It is our responsibility to protect this life as Christian, and the Pope is reminding us of this. Then many people will take these initiatives. Christians at the grassroots, the catechists and all that, they will take initiatives of that. I've been in an area where catechists are afraid to come to some of our meetings because they will be questioned by the priest. Why did you go there? Why did you not ask us permission? So that is why it is very important for these people to be educated, the priest, the bishop. And that's why people like Dr. Elias from our context in Africa, Dr. Amuyu are very important, because we need a lot of conferences. We are Christians, theologians from African context, we are bishops, and other Christians will be made aware about this non-violence, so that when this is somebody saying this and this, it will be so, they will be so open. And these priests will take these messages to the Christians, and then the Christians will embrace the message and also reach other non-Christians, because at the village level in these areas, there is no religious discrimination. They are brothers and sisters, thank God at the moment for that. Yeah.
Last question.
I'd like to take us to the discussion about martyrdom from this morning. Given that the three contexts are really contexts that either have history of violence or continue to experience different forms of violence, largely religious connected, except for the case of Kanini. But in relation to that, in the daily martyrdom, as people of service, how do you deal with vicarious trauma? Experiences of violence that even in the course of service, you can end up becoming a victim of that very experiences of the kind of violence that you're trying to address, and whether you have resources that, and I think Kanini touched a little bit on it, but I want to know from the context Francis and Anna. And also the fact that the church is still persecuted in the context of India from the kind of stories you're reading and the kind of violence that the church is experiencing.
Okay, in brief, this trauma is very deep scar which is in the individual, especially when children are traumatized, it goes on for their life. So I think it's a multi-pronged kind of thing. You have to see the psychological aspect, which is traumatized, so help the child to deal at the psychological level. The spiritual level, the social level is very, very important. Education can play a great role in all of that. Okay. Now, in my situation also, you have to see religion in its complexity, because this martyrdom and many of these things, you have Muslims today talking of martyrdom, After 9/11, all those who died, okay, we see from our point of view, there were so many people who collapsed in the Twin Towers. This is not the discourse of martyrdom. They were told, the people who are flying the planes, you are martyrs for Allah. You are going into something which is a powerful symbol of Satan. Economic power, political power, religious power, Western religion, you see, so the word WBC becomes another symbol of power in that sense, and they become martyrs. Why are people in the Muslim world becoming, for them, we say they're terrorists. For many of the Muslims, they are martyrs. That's what's happening today in India. So we have to deal with a lot of complex issues, but any issue is very complex, and we have to look at all the strands which are involved and deal with it at every level. Education is a great tool in all that, and awareness. I think awareness is very, very important.
I agree with you, and also we have to see two aspects. Trauma, we have Center for Trauma who deal with trauma professionally, like psychotherapists. But what we do with violence, we in training for non-violence, it is important to empower people that they could do something for their society, that they are able to do it. And empowerment comes from to be listened. That I am empowered when you listen me, when I have space in the group to be, to tell my opinion, to tell what I see. We had in one training, one person, because we asked, what is your religion identity? Christian, Orthodox, Catholic, Baptist, Muslim. One woman, because Bosnian is mixed, she say, I'm Orthodox, Muslim, and Catholic. And it isn't a joke what she said. It is really so. And that she's accepted in this group as Muslim, Catholic, Orthodox, it is not in daily life. But here she is accepted. And that is a moment of empowerment. And after that you learn other skills, you learn, but it is important that you as person, you have your self-security, your self-esteem. Self-esteem. That is what we do. And the second, what we do is, we live in the culture where heroism is great. We have fun. When militarism is positive. War, when we took war, is good. When the other come, bad. That is the culture of black and white. That is the culture they don't understand structural violence. And that's all topics must be seen, deconstruct militarism. That is how we struggle against violence. Deconstruct heroism. Deconstruct, because you heard prejudice in normal daily life. I speak with my friends and I hear negative emotion to the Serbs. That is very sad. If you heard that by children, what kind of society we build for future, and that is topics what we deal with and what we trauma, because I'm not sure that we don't have a situation that war is coming, but I'm not sure in the future when we don't work today what can be, because our people, they can drink to another wine and beer and tomorrow they can kill each other. I don't want to say that bad people, that is this kind of thinking and new thinking we bring in. Non-violence is new paradigm.
I want to say something? Okay, fine. So thank you very much for the questions. Because of that, we are able to elicit many more responses from our speakers. And Anna, Francis and Kanini, very happy that you spoke to us. It was a practical ground root experience and also answered many questions. So let us give a round of applause to our